This episode of Mafia Family Ties is sponsored by Selena Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electric.
Welcome back to another episode of Mafia Family Ties. With me today is Chris Trapasso. Chris, thanks for being a part of this.
This is really exciting for me. Thanks for having me on, guys.
This is a long time coming because you're like one of the first people I think I actually followed on Twitter for Bill's content. I don't even know if I would call it Bill's content back then because I feel like in those early days, you were just a fan, kind of like chiming off like the rest of us.
Yeah, totally. And for me, this is awesome because I feel like I was there, so to speak, on Twitter, witnessing Bill's Mafia being formed by you and some of the other original Bill's Mafia members. So we've known each other and we've met each other a few times, but we've known each other for like over 15 years. Yeah. From Twitter, talking about the Bills, tweeting about the Bills, and just being fans of this team.
Yeah, I think the first interaction we ever had in real life was we did, I think it was like Coffee Culture in the Elmwood Village. Mm-hmm. And it was, I think it was you, Jonah Javad, Ryan
2013
Talbot.
draft.
2013 draft. It was 2013?
Yeah, it was the EJ draft.
Yeah, so it's been a minute.
Yeah,
it's
long
been
time.
A minute. Before we get into like that end of things though, one thing we really like to talk about here is just the tailgating experience, the fan experience. And before you were the analyst that you are now, you were a fan. And so tell me a little bit about your life growing up, going to games, the tailgating experience, you know, as much as you want to share.
Yeah, no, I mean, I got to say, I was born a Bills fan. Like, and that kind of sounds like a weird phrase, but that's all that I ever knew. My dad was in the rock pile when he was a kid. He's had season tickets since the current stadium opened in 1973. So that's all that I ever really knew. And I remember going to games with my dad that we would get out of, like I would get out of Sunday school a little early because we had kind of a long drive. And my dad would bring me like right before kickoff because he like was afraid of me as like an 8-year-old getting involved in anything, tailgating, getting a beer bottle thrown in my head, on, you know, any of
Some
that
things
stuff.
haven't changed.
Yes, a lot of things are kind of the same. And so I didn't really get a lot, like my dad and family were not really tailgating at games. My dad is like a football purist through and through. So as a kid, that was kind of my memory of it. But like you, like a lot of people listening and watching, born into the Bills family for sure.
So tell me a little bit about, I see you tweeting sometimes about like, is it the Parker Brothers tailgate? Talk to me about this. What is it? I've never been. I've never seen it.
Okay. Well, you need to stop first off, which I know you probably have a lot going on Sundays for home games, but two brothers, both of my friends from Medina, Rory Parker, Ray Parker, they literally, it's just a gradual progress where 15 years ago, they set up a tent, they did some wings and fries. And then each year people would start to donate some money to them because they were kind of feeding maybe 5 people, then 10 people. Now they have like 2 flat tops. They do what I coined the term. I like to pat myself on the back for this, and I joke around with them about it. They do craft tailgating. They do garbage plates. They do stingers. They do spaghetti and meatballs. They did hibachi a few times. They've really invested a lot of their time and taken some donations, but a lot of it's their money too, to try to give like not just the classic wings and hot dogs and burgers, which I know other Bills Mafia members are also doing, but they're just my friends from high school that I've known actually since I was like 5 years old. They live in West Seneca now, or like in like the South Buffalo area. And they put so much of their time and energy into it that I feel like I got to go to their tailgate every week. And honestly, their food is super good. So
there's no charge? I don't want to like flood them with folks like showing up.
I mean, they can't obviously charge. They have a Venmo sticker. They have a little tip jar. Most people pay though, because they're making, like they made Nashville hot chicken sandwiches for the Patriots game a couple weeks ago. They did garbage plates already. They're going to do stingers for the Chiefs game. So like usually people pay, and they have now like 2 tents. They have friends that bring speakers. So it's like we're not going through tables necessarily. I mean, if the Bills make a Super Bowl or make an AFC title game at home, some people might do that, but it's really just about reconnecting with my really good friend from my childhood that has gotten really into creating an awesome tailgate experience for people.
I love that because football is community.
Sure,
you know, it's
100%.
So much more than what happens on the field. Where is this? Where is this Parker Brothers tailgate?
So it's in lot 7 now. It's like right behind Prohibition 2020. It's a little bit further back. They were right where the current stadium is now. Like when the people were sacrificing themselves to the pit, we were like, was it someone from the tailgate? Because it was literally right outside where the current or where the new stadium is now. They had to move obviously because that lot, I think it was lot 4, is closed, but they're right behind Prohibition 2020, and they've been there these first 3 or 4 games of the season.
Oh, that's easy to find.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Maybe I'll swing by then.
Yeah, we love it.
That sounds awesome. And I'm happy just to hear about it because I've seen you tweet about it, but I've never actually engaged.
I try to promote for them just
what is
because,
this?
again, they're my good friends from childhood, and they really like. He'll text me, Rory or Ray will text me on like Tuesday or Wednesday with like they're preparing the meat, or they have to go to this place, they have to go to Restaurant Depot to get the extra like fix in. So they really put a lot of their passion into it, and it's an awesome experience for everybody.
So you're kind of like their hype guy.
Yeah, I am. Oh yeah, 100%. Like, and I like run their Instagram, a lot of their social media stuff. They're not really big social media guys, so I'm like, I'll do it. Like,
Yeah.
It's fun for me, and I still pay. I still give them like,
of course, yeah.
So it's been a lot of fun, kind of being indirectly involved in that.
That's awesome. I love that. I mean, you talked about like getting ushered in by your dad, and I did the same things with my girls growing up. I was like, all right, we're gonna get as close to the kickoff as possible. We're gonna show up. We're gonna get you right in there. Hopefully, the concourse isn't too bad, and then we'll get you in your seats. But in terms of just overall, how has tailgating changed? We'll say even in the past like 15, 20 years from your experience.
Well, I think you leaned into it that the Bills, the NFL, football is really community based. And it's one thing that as I've grown up and gone from a fan to an analyst that still goes to the games, that it's always been this thing that anyone that I see in my hometown out in Buffalo, we can connect about the Bills. And I've noticed in the tailgating scene, I'm talking about the Parker's tailgate, which to me is awesome. I think it's the best tailgate out there. But even walking to their tailgate, it seems like there are so many more tailgates that go all out, whether they have a bus, whether it's Pinto Ron, there's so many Bills fans that have really accepted that like they are just as famous as the Bills team actually is, and put again a lot of their time and energy and effort and to think of a creative menu and to make really good food for people. So it gives you a reason to get to the game 3 and 4 hours early before you get to experience a Bills game.
So many people have become famous for their tailgates, right?
Yeah.
And what they put on, because a Sunday is more than just going to the game. In fact, that's for a while, like, 10 years ago or so, I gave up my tickets because it's an all day thing, you know, and I had, 2 young daughters at the time and everything, but you want to get there as early as possible. You want to spend as much time before the game as possible, and then the game, and then we all know about sitting in your car after the game waiting for the traffic and everything. So it's an all day thing.
Yeah.
Just thankfully the past, 7-8 years, the game part of the Sunday
Yeah,
has
sure.
really upgraded.
Changed.
Why don't you tell everybody like what your role is now as an analyst, what you're doing, what you've done in the past, kind of bring everybody up to speed.
Yeah, it's definitely unique because, like I said, born a Bills fan, and I guess to answer this question, should probably give a little bit of backstory.
Absolutely.
That as I grew up, and I was like anyone else, I hated every Dolphins player. I hated Wayne Corbett. I hated Curtis Martin. As I got older, I found myself like seeking out the best and most genuine analysis of the team. Like there would be times where I would read a Jerry Sullivan column in the Buffalo News, and the inner child in me was like mad at what I was reading for the 2006 Bills. But then the other part of me, as I was getting older, was more like, hey, he's right. I've watched this team. They're not very good in this 2006 iteration of the Bills. So as I did that, I really started to lean into, by the time I was done with high school, getting into college, like I could actually be a person that's doing this. And so now today, and really for the last 15 years that I've been in this industry, I have put just as much of an onus on trying to be as right as I possibly can, as opposed to pushing a narrative or, creating content that's more propaganda based. So yeah, I can watch the game with my dad, cheer for the Bills, but then when the game's over, you need to be real about what's right with the team or this player, or what's not right with the team, what's good about this player, the weaknesses of this player. I think I owed it to myself and to the millions of other Bills fans that I know are just as passionate as I am to give the best analysis possible.
And I've always appreciated that about you. In fact, I like how you root for players. I've seen you celebrate when a player gets drafted to a specific team, like for that player, because it's going to be a great fit, or same with the free agency end of things. So I have always appreciated that holistic. I don't know if that's the right word to use here, but like that approach you take in terms of understanding the game and understanding the players and the right fits and the wrong fits.
Yeah, and it's certainly, I mean, that's part of what my job has been for the last 10 or 15 years as an NFL draft analyst, as long as just or along with just being a regular analyst. But you're saying it right there. Like, I felt that need to get the genuine, unbiased Bills analysis and opinion. So I knew I can't be the only one thinking this way, that I cared so much about the team. That's what I wanted. I wanted the truth. So I'm not going to say that every prediction I've made, every article I've written has come true, but it is, you can bet your ass that every single one of those articles or podcast appearances or videos that I've been on has been my genuine thought about a player or a team, whether it's the Bills or an AFC East rival. I've always tried to be as sincere as possible.
And as somebody, based in Buffalo, raised through Buffalo sports, how do you think you differ a little bit from maybe the national crowd in terms of the perspectives and the analysis that you're giving?
Well, I mean, like you mentioned, the last 7 or 8 years, the Bills have been at the forefront of everything when it comes to primetime games, Josh Allen winning MVP last year. So it's been, I can't say the last 7 to 8 years I've been that drastically different, but during like the end of the drought, it was always like these negative narratives about the city itself, the region, Western New York, that you certainly know a lot of listeners and people like that are viewing certainly felt that I was always feeling like I had to push back on that a little. I guess what I would say now is, and what I've always tried to do with my writing career or my career as an analyst, is know the Bills the best, but like you were mentioning, be aware of what's going on in the entire NFL. So when the Bills trade for someone or they sign him in free agency or they draft him, you can have, hey, this is what I said before they did this. There's no chance of any homerism or any biased opinions. And I've had a job where I've had to write and know about the entire league. So it's been kind of a unique thing that certainly the Bills I know in and out, or I try to know in and out, but knowing the entire league gives you good perspective on how the Bills are playing relative to other teams in the league.
That's awesome. And that's one thing for me. I feel like I've kind of gone backwards a little bit because I was really into fantasy for several years. Okay. I still am, before the whole Bills Mafia thing took off. And then once that took off, I found myself focusing more and more and more just on the Bills and everything, to the point now where I go into these fantasy drafts, I'm like almost throwing darts. And some years it works and some years it doesn't. Yeah. But yeah, so I really commend you on the ability to, that's a lot to master in terms of, because the players are changing, the coaches are changing every year, and to understand how these coaches, how they tend to run their teams, and then the players and their tendency. It's amazing to me how you're able to keep all that straight.
Well, I would say too, like I'm not going to pat myself on the back twice in one podcast, but I'll say it's been,
I'll allow it if you want to.
No. It's like, I was going to say, it's not even that I've been able to master knowing the entire league. I'm not trying to suggest that, but my job as an NFL draft analyst the last 10 plus years has forced me to like watch 200 to 400 players every draft season. Now these guys are veterans in the league. So I'm not going to say again that I was necessarily right that often about them when they were coming into the league, but I knew that Matt Milano was pretty good in coverage because he kind of was a safety at Boston College. He played close to the line of scrimmage, like things like that the ins and outs of certain players. And when you're watching that many over the course of a decade, you can kind of say like, I have a decent grasp of a lot of the rosters throughout the entire NFL.
That's awesome. Now, have you ever done any like a look back kind of things, like looking at how you were rating guys when they're getting drafted as opposed to where they are now? That's
not nearly as good. It's something that bugs me. I know that's just par for the course when you're an NFL draft analyst, that you have to accept you are going to get players wrong, and I certainly have gotten many wrong. So I've gone back to look. I could pull a few that, guys that I liked that got drafted way later. I loved Khalil Shakir. I really liked Christian Benford coming out of Villanova. But then there's guys that I've certainly missed upon too, which it's like a never-ending battle that I'm always trying to tweak my process a little to get just a little bit better at predicting those guys once they get into the league. But like I said earlier, even if I was wrong about them going from college to the NFL, at least when they're in the league, I know general strengths and weaknesses of specific players.
And that's more what I was getting into, not like how many times have you missed, but to have like your own little personal database of like, all right, where was I on this guy like 3 years ago, 4 years ago when he was drafted, and to go back and like, oh yeah, I can see that he struggled in this or he was great at that or anything. For the young bucks that are watching today, what advice do you have for someone that is really interested in kind of like doing what you're doing for a living?
It's going to sound cliche, but then I have something more specific with this, like following your passion and never thinking that your passion is silly or can't become a career. And the Bills, the NFL was my passion as I, in those formative years of middle school, high school, and going away to college. I went to school in Indiana. I think that kind of helped me like realize like, oh, I was surrounded by Bills stuff in this area. And then suddenly during the Bills drought, no one in Indiana like could even recognize a Bills jersey. It kind of made me really grow stronger in my connection to the team. And I've always in my career been like, I want to take that next step. I want to write about the Bills. And then it was like, I want to write about the entire league. I wanted to get closer and closer to the team and the league throughout my career. And that's really not going to stop. So I think for as much as when I was first starting out, I didn't get a lot of pushback from people, but occasionally it would be like, are you really going to try to write about football online in 2008? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to try to do it. So I think never backing down from what is really that passion inside you, and you can make it into a career if you really are going to be willing to put in the time and the effort to it.
I love that. And that applies more to what, your role and your job, but like, I guess to anything that, the whole believe in your dreams mentality. It's really true. Like if you focus and work, I mean, unless it's something like the guy in the commercial with Peyton Manning who wants to be the NFL quarterback and everything. Yeah. But within reason, you apply yourself, and if you dedicate yourself, you could make huge strides in that. Great advice. What's in one of your earliest Bills memories?
I'm in a pretty unique age that I don't know if I said it earlier, but the drought started when I was 12. So like in those years where you're a kid, you get into the sport, but you don't really know what's going on. I remember after the Music City Miracle, the next year is when the drought started. And I was like baffled that the Bills weren't in the playoffs. I was like, Dad, why are the Bills not playing? Oh, they didn't make the playoffs because they had made it like every year that I was born. One of my first memories though, beyond that, it's very vague. And I wish I had more memories of the Super Bowls. I mean, obviously they didn't turn out well, but is the last Super Bowl where the Bills were leading at halftime. We were at my dad's good friend's house that he shares season ticket holders with, or that he shares season tickets with since the 70s. And I remember just I still to this day remember the vibe and the excitement in that kitchen that the Bills were leading at halftime.
13-7, if I remember correctly.
13-7, something like that. That they were literally that close, 30 minutes away from winning a Super Bowl. Which I know is probably, twisting the knife for a lot of fans. I was like 6, so I like kind of like remembered how excited everyone was. So that was probably my first memory, and it probably is fitting that it ultimately did not turn out well in terms of where the Bills have been to date. So that Music City Miracle, I remember being a kid and thinking, going on a walk with my dad after the Music City Miracle, and I was trying to even then create like theories for why things happened. And my thought was, this is actually pretty funny. It's embarrassing that year the Titans switched uniforms. They were the Tennessee Titans. They had and I thought that the league made that not be called a backwards or a forward lateral to sell more jerseys to the Titans. And I remember like telling that to my dad, and I was so sure of myself that that's the reason why it happened. And now, obviously looking back, I'm sure he was like, okay, Chris, sure, yeah, no. But that's like,
I'm
those
jaded,
two are
bro.
bad.
Maybe I can get there now.
Yeah. I mean, that's like those couple memories were my first, where like starting hazy with the Super Bowls and then upset Music City Miracle. And we really haven't had a lot of positive memories until the last, 5 to 8 years.
Yeah, I love how one of your earliest takes as a young Bills fan was the whole conspiracy, the league, the country hates us and everything. So I was raised into the same auspices. But I think I know the answer to this one. So I'll let you know if I'm guessing right or wrong. But favorite all-time Bills player?
Have I tweeted?
It's based on an interaction that we had.
Okay.
15 years ago.
All right. Well, I want to hear what I said to you 15 years ago, but I'm going to actually go way back. Daryl Talley, to me, it was, again, I was between like 5 and 10 years old, but I'm a pretty passionate guy. And those teams, and maybe I was drawn to him because of the Spider-Man Under Armour that was like the first of its kind. But I just felt like Darryl Talley was like the heart and soul of those Bills teams. And he was so passionate. And you remember, that was like NFL Films time. Watching those seasons in review, you would just get all of those nuggets from Darryl Talley on the sideline. And for as good as, obviously Jim Kelly, Bruce Smith, Thurman Thomas were, and that they were fan favorites, I would always like notice Darryl Talley being like the heartbeat of that team. So as a kid, the Spider-Man Under Armour and the passion from Darryl Talley made him my favorite player.
Okay, so maybe I can
jog my memory on
all
this.
right, so I found a cool plaque that I had as a kid of Jim Kelly, and it was like, I forget what it said, All Pro or Pro Bowl or something on it.
Okay.
It was like, to this day, it's one of my favorite photos of a football player ever. This one with Jim Kelly, which I have since now again lost. But I posted a picture of it and I said, this is I said, just found this awesome plaque of the best player to ever play for the Bills. And then you replied back and you said, really, not Bruce Smith?
Oh, okay.
And I remember thinking like,
oh yeah.
oh yeah, he's probably right.
Well, actually, there's a funny story with that too. One of my first videos I ever did with CBS, I was at the Combine like 2015. I always like remember by draft that the Bills drafted Ronald Darby in the second round that year. And I remember interviewing him, and that was like a moment for me where I was like, oh, I interviewed him and now he's on the Bills. But anyway, I was there and they had me come on their set, which I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Will Brinson, Pete Prisco, and it was just like, do the top 5 Bills of all time. And I think I said Jim Kelly or O.J. Simpson, and Pete Prisco's like, it's Bruce Smith. Think about it. He's the all-time leader in sacks, all these all-pros. He had these 100-tackle seasons. And I was like, and so I'm just new into the game, and I'm like, you're right. It is Bruce Smith. So that's just my opinion. I wouldn't necessarily say he was my favorite player, but to me, Josh Allen's getting close, but I still think Bruce Smith is the best player.
Let's find that tweet. And then you can go back to Pete Prisco 10 years later and be like, dude, just so you know, like at one point I was on board with you.
Yeah.
You mentioned your dad and how I'm assuming you got a lot of this love for analysis because you said he's so pure football. Explain to me a little bit how that, how his fandom has turned and grown your fandom.
Well, I think first and foremost, I would say just it's in my DNA. I mentioned that I'm a pretty passionate guy. My dad is incredibly passionate about the Bills, about the Sabres. He's been an awesome dad to myself and my sister, was a great husband to my mom. Like, he just kind of exudes that. So I think maybe whether it was just in my DNA or I was watching him be this really passionate guy and have the high highs and the low lows certainly was a thing. And that he was always reading the Buffalo News, always as a kid, and that I would kind of pick it up after he set it down. And I would, those old pictures that were on like of the starting lineups, like on the back of the paper, on the like in the sports section.
Oh yeah,
They would literally show like the Bills' defensive line with all the players,
their age and their college.
Yes,
and everything.
I would try to memorize those, and he would like quiz me on it. Stuff like that, like, hey, where did Aaron Schobel go? TCU, like, you would have to know that. I mean, he wouldn't be mad at me if I got it wrong, but like quizzing me on that and just being into, just constantly consuming, whether it was WGR, whether it was the Buffalo News, there was obviously not as many outlets as there are today. Sure. I just kind of, that was the nature versus nurture thing where I was born with it, but I certainly was in a household where my dad was always trying to find the best analysis possible too.
I love that. He must be proud of like where you are now or thrilled. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I think he is, but it's like a lot of the time it's become so normal for me to be on a podcast or that I'll say like, Dad, hey, like I wrote this about the Bills play action offense, that he's used to it.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm just his son still. Like he's like, there's no, change in our relationship. And honestly, with him getting older, he's 75 now. What I really cherish the most actually starts before the tailgate. When my dad and I are driving up to the Bills game, we live in Medina, so it's like an hour drive almost. Those conversations, which they occasionally dip into just what's going on in our lives. I mean, he lives pretty close to me, so he knows. But like the nitty gritty Bills talk in the car on the way up, I'm almost in a way, it's like bittersweet once we get to the game. Because I'm like, okay, we're going to the game. This is sweet. It's going to be fun. But I am sad that hour-long conversation is over that we've been having for like 30 plus years.
That's awesome. I love that. It's really That's really special.
It is.
Yeah,
It really
thanks for
is.
sharing that. That's really cool. All right, switching gears a little bit. I don't know if you heard the Bills are going to have a new stadium next year. In terms of the current Highmark Stadium, though, what are some of the eras that kind of like stick out to you, and what are some of your favorite, or just thoughts in general over the history of the stadium?
Well, I mean, I wish I could say that I experienced more of the 90s Bills teams because, like I said, the last Super Bowl, I was 6 years old. The eras to me were like the Todd Collins to Alex Van Pelt era, where it just felt like there was no hope. Like there was, when Todd Collins wasn't the guy, it was like all these patchwork quarterbacks where you kind of felt like they weren't going to be the ones. And then into high school and early part of college for me was the Trent Edwards, JP Lossman, where there was a lot of excitement for Lossman, but it kind of ended quickly. To me, like the Chan Gailey era was like super fun. It wasn't that long of an era either, but it felt like aligned with the city of Buffalo, that you had Fitzpatrick, who was a journeyman. You had David Nelson, who was undrafted. You had Donald Jones, who was undrafted. Stevie Johnson, a 7th rounder. Fred Jackson, undrafted. Like that team. And I know that was like the start of the Bills Mafia movement for you and for this entire fan base. But that era, even though ultimately those teams were not super successful outside of 2008 and 2011, that era was such a fun time because I felt like they had their moments of winning big games or coming back and, beating the Patriots, beating the Raiders in those 2 shootouts. Like that was so much fun. And it was kind of, again, those formative years for me where I was going to the tailgate, having fun, drinking beers with my friends. And the Bills actually showed some life and they really embodied the entire region, I think.
That's really cool. That Chan Gailey era, and partly because that's when Bills Mafia came up, like you mentioned, is kind of special to me. And I always talk about on Twitter how much I love the Stormtrooper uniforms, where it's like the just white head to toe. And I realized a couple years ago, I'm like, well, that's probably because when Bills Mafia first started, that was the new uniform kit and everything.
They needed to get rid of the old ones.
Oh, they're so bad.
So bad.
They're so bad. If I actually wore an Edwards jersey, the navy blue, I think I call them the Donahoe jerseys. I don't know if you do, but wore that to a game a couple weeks ago because they were playing Sunday 1 p.m. And I posted a drought start time feels like a good time to wear a drought jersey, and I got some feedback on that. Those teams were so much fun. And I remember the Wall Street Journal, of all places, actually had an article talking about Chan Gailey's offense and what the Bills were doing, because I think they started 5-2 in 2011. So for them to be semi-relevant and everything was really cool. Then they lost all the games except for like the Denver game in December or something like that. But so for the new stadium, any predictions on what the tailgate experience will be like? We just took that segue, but like, what are your thoughts in terms of how it could be different?
I don't think it's going to be different. I think Bills fans, wherever the Bills are playing, even if the stadium were to have been downtown, Bills fans would have been tailgating on the Skyway. I mean, they would have found a way to have their fun and to, again, get together and form those bonds that, to me, I mean, in this day and age, they're not always there. You can have different political views, religious views, different. You're raised in different parts of the town, different areas, different ethnicities, but the Bills like bring people together in this area, in this, one of the smallest markets in the NFL, as much as any team in the NFL. So I think I can't see it being much different. I mean, I know maybe some season ticket holders are going to be priced out of the new stadium, which is a shame. But I still think in and around the stadium will be very, very similar, 50 to 100,000 people around the stadium having their fun before the game. And then hopefully around the stadium in Orchard Park over the next 2 to 5 years, there's some more bars and restaurants where you can just go to the tailgate, have a good time, and then watch the game with, 5 or 10,000 of your good, Bills fans' friends, and still have a good time, even if you can't get into the stadium. Right.
And that's my hope for around the stadium. And I think you're correct. I don't think it's going to change that much. I think you're just going to be going to a different stadium across the street. But I really do hope that we'll someday get a little bit more of like a Wrigleyville kind of
Yes, that's what I'm hoping too.
Yeah, nothing will ever compare to what Chicago has, but just that whole community around, or that whole commerce area around Wrigley Field is just awesome.
Well, I think it's naturally what's going to happen because my dad, given his age and the fact that he was an original season ticket holder, he always tells me that when he first drove into Orchard Park in 1973, he's like, cow pastures. There was not really anything. And that for as much as Orchard Park has become an awesome place to be, just even when there's not a Bills game, the Bills put Orchard Park on the map and led to so much commerce and hotels and businesses, and have really built up that town in the South Towns, that I think the natural progression is when this state-of-the-art, almost $2 billion stadium goes up, we're going to see a Wrigleyville type feel where you're going to feel that Bills vibe the entire year, like 365 days.
And there's talk about them actually bringing the NFL draft to Buffalo. I know they're hoping for that. And I imagine it would be something similar to what Green Bay just did, like around the stadium.
Yeah, definitely.
In which case, you have how many years before that draft ever happens, how many years to build up some more businesses. And because when
28 or 29, I think they want to try to do.
Yeah. And when I went to the draft in Detroit, obviously that was downtown, but it was really cool because you had all these surrounding businesses around, the draft. So hopefully they'll be able to do something like that, but I don't know. We'll see. Okay. So we're going to get back into a little more patting yourself on the back. So just deal with it. You're going to have to toot your own horn a little bit. You mentioned the 2015 draft with Pete Prisco and what that was like, but is there a coolest moment that you've had in this career that you've built for yourself so far?
Okay, if we're gonna stick with the draft, I'll go. This is hindsight is 2020 because I'll admit I was not a huge Josh Allen person in the draft, and that was my first year at CBS where I had to like evaluate an entire draft. But retrospectively, after the players were drafted in the first round, it was in Dallas. I was there. It was the only draft that I've ever attended. I was there like on set with CBS, and the Bills picked Josh Allen, and like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes later, he's on stage, goes backstage. We were way up in the top of Jerry World for whatever reason. Well, I think there were other like media studio setups. They had all like number one overall pick, Baker goes through everything. When Josh walked through, after having seen Baker go through and Sam Darnold like walk past us, I was instantly in my head, I was like, he is enormous. He looks like a defensive end. And I mean, at the time I wasn't like, oh, that's going to be the reason that he's amazing. But I think Bills fans have kind of become desensitized to just how much of a specimen Josh Allen is. And seeing him at 22 years old, especially relative to the other quarterbacks, it was like he was a different breed at that point. And that image or that little 5-second vine that kind of sticks through my head is always like pops out where I'm like, Josh Allen was just like a different guy at that 2018 draft.
Yeah, it's awesome. And the stuff that he did with Part of My Take and everything too, in terms of like really how big he was and everything. That's a really cool point. And it's funny too, because when you think about the season before, and no disrespect to Tyrod Taylor or anything, but like very different body types.
100%.
And so what a changeover from one quarterback to another. And I remember, because I don't analyze the draft and because I'm not watching that much college football, especially not Wyoming, you have to go by what all the pundits are saying. And reading these things about Josh Allen, I remember just being really nervous about that pick. And then they had a preseason game against the Browns and Tyrod Taylor, actually. And he threw this one touchdown pass. I forget who it was to, but it was like such a laser. I was like, oh my gosh.
That's it.
He might be good.
So my Josh Allen moment where he might be good is, 2019, he started to play a little better where he was respectable. The rookie year flashed a little at the end, but didn't really go so well. Was the 2020 game against the Rams, where they get the big lead. There's no one in the stadium. They get the huge lead. The Rams storm all the way back. And there is like, I want to say it was like a 3rd and 22. And all of that dread, Bills fan dread that I had as a kid in 17 years of the drought came flooding in. I'm like, they're not going to get this 3rd and 22. They're going to punt. The Rams are going to, score a touchdown, kick a field goal, win the game. And he throws, again, a laser to Cole Beasley. They get the first down. And then a few plays later, they win the game with the touchdown. And I was like, whoa, like I didn't have in my memory a time where a Bills quarterback not only got the big lead, but faced the adversity of, oh man, we just lost the lead. I took a couple sacks. There was a bad call on an interception in that game, and then made a huge throw in that game. So that was I know you didn't ask me a question there,
No,
but that was my Josh Allen moment where I was like, whoa, like he might actually be the one. And he ultimately had an amazing season in 2020.
Oh my, what a special season that was.
It was. I mean, because you got to watch every game. I mean, weirdly, we're talking about tailgating. Being able to watch every game at home and like the parties that I had at my house got bigger and bigger and bigger as that season progressed. That season was really special for sure.
Yeah. I say the same thing. Like my daughters, it was like the four of us in the house and they were always like Bills fans, but like, yeah, my parents are Bills fans, and I go to games now and then. It's fun, and I like the idea of the Bills. That season, they both locked in because what else are they going to do? Like it was in the middle of a COVID and everything. What's a draft moment you've had where like you can confidently say, "I nailed it"?
Oh man, there's. I don't want to say there's so many because I was saying there's a lot that I've missed. I want to try to think of someone Bills related. I guess I would go Khalil Shakir. I posted a TikTok video before, which I don't know if he's become this guy, but I loved him. I think I had a second or third round grade on him. And in the video, you got to hook people at the beginning. I was like, this is the next Cooper Kupp. And it was this Boise State receiver, Khalil Shakir. He's not getting a lot of hype. He's so good after the catch. And I had been the biggest proponent, despite how good the Bills offense was in 2020, they weren't a big yards after the catch team. And it was always like Josh making a crazy throw, Cole Beasley would fall down, Diggs would go out of bounds. They need more yards after the catch. When they picked him in the 5th round, I was just, I mean, you could probably go back and look at my tweets that I was like, this is the best pick the Bills made. Absolutely loved it. That was a great class in general for the Bills. They got James Cook then, Christian Benford too, but Khalil Shakir was, if we're talking Bills centric, was one of my biggest hits because I just fell in love with him during the draft process. His analytics were good too. And he was really, really good after the catch. And turns out he's still really, really good after the catch.
I actually remember that tweet that you said that, or that poster or whatever it was. I remember seeing it thinking, okay, all right, this is a thing.
For a 5th rounder. Yeah.
And for you to have like you said, like a 3rd roundish grade on him is pretty cool. He's great.
He's so good.
Going forward, if you can design your NFL dream assignment, what would it be?
Okay, I'm going to go a little beyond what your question was there. My dream is to work for the Bills. Like, that's not saying that I'm not going to, be against saying anything bad about the team now in my current analyst job. But as I said earlier, I've always wanted to like get closer and closer to the team. I went to college for sports management. Then I wanted to like write about the team because I didn't want to just be like selling tickets in the back room. I wanted to like be watching the game and covering a team. And then I've wanted to get closer and closer and closer that I want to like be in that war room during draft night, whether it's Brandon Beane, another GM. I mean, I'm hoping it's Brandon Beane to ultimately be working where the scouting job that I've done, the analytics stuff that I've scoured over is part of the process where I could say like, let's use Khalil Shakir again. If there's the next Khalil Shakir, whether it's in, next year or in 5 years or in 10 years, I can watch a Bills game and say, I was part of the team that ultimately drafted him.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, I hope you get it. I hope that happens. Brandon, if you're watching. Okay, so now is a little bit of a segue. One thing we'd like to do is wing reviews, and I want to give a big shout out to, I think it's Texas Wrangler on Instagram, who complains every time we do one of these wing videos because he says, another wing video? So yes, one more.
No, I think we could have done the whole podcast about wings if you wanted to. So I'm happy that we're doing this.
I'm with you there. What's your go-to spot?
Go-to is Barbell. So living in Medina, the fact that there's Barbell North in Clarence is only like 30 minutes away. I still think the combination of their mediums, I normally get medium hot, and the Cajun honey butter barbecue that I'm sure everyone says the best that you can get in Buffalo. But I will say, and maybe you have a follow-up, but I'll say this first. The mediums at 911 are, and for the longest time, I was like, Barbell stands alone. They're the Josh Allen of wings. 911, I had those like 3 times in the last 6 months, and they are, I mean, there's only hot, medium, mild there. They're as good as Barbell, and I never thought I'd say that.
Yeah, I've only had 911 once, but I absolutely loved it. It was so good. I think I was out with you probably know Greg Thompson and Aaron Quinn and a couple other guys, and amazing. Just that was what brought me out as a North Towns guy. I'm not quite as north as as you are, but I don't get out to South Buffalo. Yeah, no. I always say I never go past the hockey arena unless it involves football.
Yeah.
But Yeah, 9/11's legit. And yeah, barbell, you can't go wrong with that. And I was going to ask you what your favorite flavor was, but you just
Yeah, I mean,
said those two.
I haven't ventured, like, I know, like, isn't Josh Allen's favorite, like, lemon pepper there or something? Like, he's, I mean, I know that he likes Cajun honey butter barbecue, but they're so good, and the medium hots are so good, I feel like I'd be cheating on those two sauces if I got anything else. And I'm a wing purist. Like, if you say you have great wings, you have to have a good medium. You can't just put like sugar and maple syrup and honey and barbecue sauce and say, hey, look, this wing is good. You have to start with the classic. And 9/11's just, that's all they serve. I respect the hell out of them for that. And they're super good. And Barbell's, whether it's Barbell North or the original, their medium hots, I think, are as good as any wing in the world.
Good stuff. Now, what's the most you've ever had or most you've ever seen eaten?
I can do 20.
Yeah.
And they have to be really good. I do some intermittent fasting, so that helps a little. I've seen one of my good friends at a local place by us in Medina, like, could do 30 wings. And he's like a skinny guy. His name's JT. He could just take 30 down, like, and not even really be that disrupted in his stomach.
How old is he? 17? I haven't been able to do that.
Yeah, I mean,
since
I was going to say we were younger. We were in our early 20s, but he could put down 30 wings and then just be like, all right, what are we doing now? Like, and not be like, I need to sit on the couch for the next 3 hours.
That's fantastic. Big shout out to JT. Well, this is great, man. Thank you so much for coming in.
It was fun.
Long overdue.
For sure.
I appreciate the work you do. Keep it up. And I hope all your wildest dreams come true and you end up with the Bills or, whatever the future has for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Dal.